see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
What are we talking about? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go!
All right, what's going on, everybody? We are here back for another Big 3 episode. Hopefully, you're all enjoying yourself. Happy New Year. First time we're seeing you in the new year. George, what's going on? Already here in the chat. Appreciate that. We got a lot to talk about. You know, something magical happened in the NBA. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Also have a trade that happened in the NBA. We'll break that down, kind of give you our opinions on that. And then, of course, we got to get into the NFL as we are into Week 18. It's almost over. It's crazy. But that also means the playoffs are right around the corner. So it's not completely gone, but, you know, it's definitely coming down to the end. But, Brett, before we get into everything, you know, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, you know. I'm excited. Lots of great things happening in the world of sports, and I'm ready to talk about them.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into it now. So, yeah. Those Pistons, as Jory put, they won a game. It had been 2 long months, which to wrap your head around a group of professionals, 2 months between wins is wild to me. And when you look at the NBA, it seems like even the most dysfunctional teams stumble into a win or two, even if it's just every couple of weeks. But Detroit said, nah, we're not about this winning life. We're going to keep losing until they faced the Raptors and they got a win. Then obviously right after that, they ended up losing again. So they couldn't even put a winning streak together. But looking at this Pistons team, because yes, it's good that they won a game, but who are we to blame for them being this bad to have a 28-game losing streak? Do we blame Monty Williams, the coach, the players, front office, everybody? Who are you blaming for this, Brett?
The only right answer is everybody. Let's be real. It starts with Troy Weaver for putting this team together. But the problems with him is his roster construction didn't even make sense before the season. What the example I like to use is he gets Marvin Bagley, signs Marvin Bagley to an extension that didn't even make sense. I promise you, nobody was lining up to pay Marvin Bagley $12.5 million a year.
Right.
And then he trades for James Wiseman. Like, what? This is just, like, I get stockpiling talent, but you want the talent to be able to fit. And this dude's like, you got a failed second rounder that happens to be a big, send him down. So he assembles this squad with, like, the absolute worst spacing I think I have ever seen in an NBA team. And you're trying to build around a slasher, and Kate, how's he going to slash into 4 guys standing in the paint because nobody can shoot around him? Monty Williams, he's being paid $70 million to put together the worst lineups possible, which I get it. The team is bad, but there's no reason to. They still have enough shooters. They don't need to be playing 3 non-shooters at the same time. They still have enough shooters to avoid that happening. And here he is. He's letting teams go on run, refusing to use timeouts. So he looks absolutely lost and clueless out there. And I think it's part of this is on the players too. The fact of the matter is, a lot of the time when this team gets punched in the mouth, they roll over. They gave up. We saw that a lot during this losing streak. As soon as they get down 10, that was it. They were done. So This is just a catastrophic failure on the front of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. Like, obviously, it has to be everybody. I mean, Monty Williams with the price tag, not getting a return with the team being this bad. And I don't care like how bad your roster is. You can't go 2 months without winning a game. Like that makes it seem like you played the top of the NBA for several weeks and you just couldn't buy a win. Like this isn't college basketball. It's the NBA. There's plenty of teams who, if you look at them, just looking at it on paper, the Pistons probably were on level talent wise, or might have been slightly better during these 2 months, and they just couldn't make it happen. I mean, look, this past week it looked like it was obviously coming to a close. They had close games against the Hawks. They had a game against the Celtics where the Celtics basically didn't care. It was trying to give it away, and Detroit couldn't capitalize, ultimately losing that one in overtime. But the fact that they beat Toronto, I mean, I guess they couldn't. I guess they didn't know how to handle themselves because they lose the very next game. But like looking at the team, there's some talent. Like Cunningham, like you said, he's a slasher. Ivy's a slasher. They have Bogdanovich who can shoot. So you feel like they're alone. You could have stumbled into something. Now the big men thing, I feel like that's been an issue in Detroit for years. Because wasn't there a year when they had like Drummond, then they backed it up with like Nerlens Noel, that backed it up with like Jahlil Okafor randomly. Like they just love having big men for no reason.
The worst big three maybe of all. Ironically, maybe the only worst spacing I've ever seen than this is the 2013 Pistons when they tried to run a starting lineup with Josh Smith, Greg Monroe, and Andre Drummond in it, and that was a catastrophic disaster too. Shockingly,
right. So, if there's somebody who's in the organization that they need to rid themselves of to change the philosophy, then they better do that now, because this. I don't know. I hope there's like not another long losing streak coming because, like I said, they lost the game after the win. Let's hope it's not like another 2-3 weeks before they win again. I don't know if these players can handle it. Going on ESPN every night, watching the Pistons highlights and just seeing players sitting on the bench like they don't know what's going on. It was a rough look. But I don't know. We'll see if there's brighter days in Detroit coming down the line. Hopefully they get a little active in the trade market. They got to do something. But Sijin, what's up? Jordy already said what's up. You're in here. Daniel Barry, what's going on? Barry said, Daniel Barry, Pistons can't beat a United States team. Had to beat Toronto. Very true. Anthony Price, the Pistons will start the 2024 with a new record. LOL. Let's hope not. And Monty might get canned if that happens again. I mean, if they were to can him after a year, what a waste of $70 million that was. That's wild to me. But Bray, you got any last words on the Pistons before we move on?
All I gotta say is I think you just start at the top with this one. If somebody's got to go first, you've got to can Troy Weaver first for creating this. I don't think Monty survives this whole contract, but I think it would just be absolute mismanagement if you didn't start with Troy Weaver.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you can't keep Weaver and move on from Monty Williams. That would just be counterproductive. So yeah, the guy who brings in the talent, he should go first, and then at least you bring in somebody new. You give Monty a chance to gel with that guy, and then if it doesn't work next year, then you let that guy bring in somebody else. That makes sense. Then again, not a lot in Detroit makes sense, so who knows what they're going to do. Let's see. So, Anthony says he has a hot topic about the NFL awards. So, Anthony, save it, because we'll talk about the NFL here in a little bit. Because I am interested what your hot topic is. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our next topic. Speaking of unhappy situations, apparently, according to Woj, him and his Woj bombs, he dropped another one saying that KD is supposedly unhappy in Phoenix and that the Phoenix front office is monitoring how unhappy he is. Take that for whatever you mean, because I mean, I think KD or somebody said it's not true, but we know we've never really known Woj to just make up stuff. So looking at this, first off, I mean, should we shed a tear for KD because Phoenix is a mess right now? Let's start there.
Oh yeah, I think we should be weeping for Kevin Durant for endorsing the Bradley Beal trade.
Right.
That was a tearjerker. Like, I cried at how terrible that was, but no, nobody should be shedding a tear for KD. He's the one that really wanted it to be Phoenix and only Phoenix, and then proceeded to endorse the Bradley Beal trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bradley Beal was never a good fit for Phoenix. That's not what they needed at all. We've seen it in the past. When you triple down on offense like they did without any defense, that does not work. So we should not be shedding a tear for KD. But I'm not going to say this is all KD's fault, because at the end of the day, this falls on the front office. They're the ones that have to make the final say.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely shouldn't be feeling sorry for KD in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at KD, it almost seems like through the recent years now, like he's desperately wants to win a ring. And I'm not going to fault him for that. But he's trying to do it kind of like the cheapest way possible, stacking teams. He tried it in Brooklyn, didn't work when they had Harden and Kyrie, or with Ben Simmons. And now in Phoenix, he went there because Booker was there, and then with Booker there, they tried to get Bradley Beal. And like you said, it was thought that Bradley Beal was coming in to sacrifice and become the point guard. That plan's been thrown out the window because now it seems like Booker is running more point. Although I feel like Booker is probably better at it than Beal. But the problem's been they can't get them all in the court because Beal's missed so much time. Beal's back now. I saw what KD was out last night. It is one big mess. They're sitting there around 500. And for a team that I think a lot of people thought when they brought these guys in was going to be a good team in the West, even though I know Brett, you didn't buy in. I wasn't really bought in. Like, I guess it's okay for him to be unhappy, but the only person he can blame is himself. That he put himself in this situation. He could have stayed in Brooklyn, try to figure it out, let them put pieces around him. But like I said, it doesn't seem like KD wants to put in the extra work if he doesn't see like an instant winner. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, and
Curran said, I was just going to read Curran. KD's a sore loser. He can't lead a team. All right. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, they want to bring in Bradley Beal to play point guard. I think it's pretty telling that he was with Washington for, a decade, and they never ran him at point guard. It's not that Bradley Beal, he's an okay playmaker, but he's not lead playmaker on a championship team.
Right.
Washington didn't even see him as a playmaker for them, and they weren't even a play-in team. So that's kind of telling that if they brought him in to be the point guard, that's just a huge misfire right there.
Right. Jory said, KD's annoying. When is he going to realize that the team isn't the problem everywhere he goes? Good point. And I feel like that comment kind of goes to what I'm saying. It's just like we've seen this with KD. I feel like Harden's been kind of on this the past couple of years where he's been bouncing around trying to find the path of least resistance to a title. I mean, a lot of people would bring up LeBron bouncing around, although LeBron, this is one thing I will say. If he signs a contract, he finishes out the contract, and then he might leave in free agency, which at that point, it's kind of your prerogative to do what you want to do because you're a free agent. But KD and Harden bouncing around through trades, it just creates messes. Now, Brooklyn, I feel like, has done pretty well outside of the KD stuff. They brought in a number of pieces. But thinking about that Phoenix team that just made the finals, they completely gutted that team to get KD and Beal. And now they're reaping the benefits of that. See, Jory said Phoenix knew what they were getting themselves into with injured Beal.
And not only him, they swapped out DeAndre Ayton finally for who? Nurkic, who misses about half the season normally. He's good for missing 30 games at least. So they decide KD. I see this as a trend with KD and his teams, right? He seems to prefer guys that have talent, like supers, but not necessarily. He don't really seem to care if they're available or not. And I saw in an interview where he said that every year he should be all NBA because he's one of the best hoopers on the court. It doesn't matter how many games he plays. And it's almost like he takes that mindset into like who he wants on his team. Like he doesn't care how many games they play as long as they're there when it matters, except they're not there when it matters, and I don't think this team can actually survive a 16-game playoff run. So
yeah, and that's if I'm about to say that's if they get there, but you feel like the collection should be good enough to get in, even if it's a play-in, which would be a disappointment in my eyes, but at least they would have the opportunity to get into the playoffs. Jory put at least Nurkic has heart, and Ayton had no heart. I mean, I kind of wonder with the Ayton situation. It kind of seemed like he was just frustrated with the way he was being used, which is why he kind of pouted. Which, I mean, look, it kind of seems like in Phoenix, you pout, you get your way. I mean, I can't say I kept up with Ayton in Portland. Not really interested in watching Blazers basketball, but
it's not good.
I kind of figured that. But I mean, if you look at this team, could Ayton contribute? I think he would just be frustrated because they just brought in more people who take the ball away from him. So, I don't know. It's just messy in Phoenix right now. And poor Frank Vogel has to deal with it after dealing with the Lakers last year and all that they went through. See? You bring up Phoenix, your dog goes off. I don't blame him. Phoenix is a mess. But before we get to our next topic, got a quick word from the network.
What's up, everybody? It's Cottrell Simpson with Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, where we're going to cover all things breaking news, sports related. We're going to preview games, and we're also going to give you our reaction to the games that have happened before. You can catch us on Wednesdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And if you miss us there, no worries. You can also catch us on Roku with Northeast Streaming Sports Productions from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Hey, and listen, if you're not into all sports and just NFL, we have Sideline to Sideline. That's on Thursday nights from 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 8 p.m. We'll break down the NFL week, the Thursday night game, and we'll preview all NFL action.
And if you're like me and college football is your fix, tune in every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Coast to Coast College Football pregame show. We'll review the previous week's action, the day's biggest games. We'll give you our pick'ems, and we'll even give you some teams that are on upset alert.
And if you don't catch us live, you can download us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your podcast. We do also have a YouTube station, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, we're back. Jory, of course, the Lakers shot it wasn't a Lakers shot necessarily. It was just a little sympathy for Frank Vogel. I mean, he had to deal with the Westbrook and all that kind of stuff in LA. Now it's the Kevin Durant situation in Phoenix. That's all I'm saying. Sure, it might have been a slight shot, but
it's a good thing Kyle shot it because if the Lakers would have shot it, they would have missed.
But I'll leave that one out there. Let it marinate. The biggest news in the NBA, we got our first trade. Knicks, Raptors, which is kind of weird because both organizations are suing each other, but now they're making trades. I don't know how that works. But basically, the framework was OG Anunoby going from Toronto to New York. And as you can see, RJ Barrett going home to Canada, and Emmanuel Quickly. There's some other pieces involved, but Precious Achua, Malachi Flynn, I mean, that name seriously has fallen off since he got drafted. But these are the three main pieces. So, first question, looking at the trade, who won it?
Oh man, it really does feel like the Raptors, but that also might be because I'm really high on IQ, right?
Okay.
And listen, everybody in the deal, the two of the main pieces in the deal are up for a new contract. That is Emmanuel Quickly and OG Anunoby. I think you can probably get Quickly for I think you said 25 mil a year. I like that a lot better than OG, who's rumored to be near 40 mil a year. OG Anunoby is one of those guys that no matter what contract he's on, he's going to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, he's a role player. You can't be paying OG Anunoby 37 to 40 mil a year. That's just unrealistic. That is superstar, carrier team level money. And OG Anunoby's just not that guy. Do I think he's a great player? Absolutely. Is he going to contribute? 100%. Is he going to be worth the money in this next contract? I don't think so, but yet again, they haven't even negotiated it yet, so maybe it's not that much. So I really don't think we figure out who won this deal until we see the details of this next contract for OG. But shout out to the Knicks for getting off that Barrett deal. So
yeah, that's what I feel like this deal is about. They weren't going to pay Quickly, and they hated the Barrett deal, so they need to find some way to get them out. And they're taking on OG, who, if they decide that they don't want to sign him, he can just go in free agency and try to sign on somewhere else. Now, if I was to say who won it, I might agree with you, the Raptors, because I feel like between Quickly and Barrett, you probably will get a little bit more production. In terms of the Raptors team, because I think the Raptors roster as it was, it needed a shakeup. And at least with Barrett, he's a guy who can create for himself off the dribble and quickly. If he can get back to kind of consistent three-point shooting, could he give them look, I'm going to throw this name out there. It's not comparable necessarily, but Maxey, where he has that energy and can create off the wing. Can he do that? I don't know. But I think the Raptors got a good haul as long as they re-sign quickly. If not, it will just look like kind of a salary dump by both teams. And oddly enough, looking at both teams, I feel like they should do more. I think the Knicks need to find a way to get rid of Randall, and I think the Raptors need to move Siakam. This needs to lead to something else. That's what I think.
yeah, no, I agree. I think that'll probably be the next move that the Raptors do. Honestly, I think that. So yeah, I think that Pascal's gone off that team. Honestly, even if he's not traded by the deadline, I don't think he comes back in the offseason.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the Knicks need to move Randall. That's probably going to be easier said than done. Although I say that now and watch Randall go on some 3-week streak when he's 25, 12, and 6 or something to make me look dumb. But I know what Randall is in the playoffs. That's my biggest thing on why the Knicks need to move him if they want to go to the next level.
The issue with Randall half the time is he's the one thing you can use to describe him, right? Consistent. He's just not consistent. When Julius Randle gets downhill, plays bully ball, and uses that as the main focus of his game, he looks great. That is all NBA Julius Randle. The Julius Randle we crap on and the one that needs to be traded, this is when he starts to settle. When he's like, oh, well, you know what? This step back contested three looks great. That's the Julius Randle that needs to go. But lately, he's been playing well. He's been hitting downhill, kind of playing with his bully ball and then working from there. So, honestly, let him rip off another week or two like this and try to sell high.
That's if the Knicks are willing to do that. But I guess another thing to talk about, because you talked about OG and him being a free agent and supposedly trying to get 40 million. That's kind of the issue where we're seeing with the NBA is that the money keeps growing and superstars keep pushing out the boundary of how much they get, which has an adverse effect on, I don't want to say middle of the road guys. I don't think OG's a middle of the road guy, but because OG has a little offense to him, he can shoot a little. I still think defense is his biggest asset because he can guard, he can guard point guards on the perimeter. He can guard wing players. Certain big men, if you put him on, if he switches onto them, he's not lost. He can hold his own. But like you said, I can't see a team paying 40 million for that. That's kind of wild to me. Because like you said, 40 million for a guy, there's going to be higher expectations. And then you give it a couple of years on a contract like that, he turns into maybe a valuable piece into kind of an overrated albatross. And that's kind of the harsh reality of the NBA right now.
I'll say exactly. And the biggest issue with OG and why that would be a mistake is simple. He's not a creator. He's not going to. He has to be set up for his shots. He can get going. He can finish in transition. He can hit catch and shoot threes. But don't ask him to create off the dribble because that's not his strength. If you're paying somebody 40 mil, they either better be giving you consistent DPOY caliber defense or some all NBA level defense, or be a creator or be a two-way player. And I think OG is a two-way player in the sense he's 3-and-D.
Mm-hmm.
But he's absolutely not a creator, and I think that's going to really hurt him if the Knicks sign him, especially in a big market like New York. They're going to be all over that.
Yeah. Jury, are you laughing at my use of albatross? I mean, I feel like it's a word that doesn't get used enough. And I mean, I was speaking of the contract, of course. But, yeah, 40 million, yeah, you better be like in fringe MVP conversation. Like, you better win like a postseason award or be in the running for something for 40 million. I can't have you for 40 million being a guy who can catch and shoot threes in the corner and play some defense. I thought you can get that for less the way the NBA is going. But quickly, so you said maybe you could get quickly for 25 million. I mean, do you think that's kind of what his market should be?
Yeah, I think so. He's a high energy. He clearly makes his team better when he's on the floor, right? He brings a lot of high energy. He's a good shooter. He can score. He sometimes tends to look for his own shot rather than play make, and that's fine. But overall, I think at least that's what I read is he's looking for at least 25 mil, and if you can get him for 25 mil, I think that a contract would age really well, actually, especially with the market always going up.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. That's what you worry about with the NBA, because it's always about like kind of timing on your free agency. Because like I said, contracts keep going up. Because look, I heard all this when Jaylen Brown signed his deal. A lot of people talking about that's too much. That's crazy. I mean, luckily for him, the team's doing really well. He's playing well. That I think some of that has quieted down. But if he was having a season where he was struggling to shoot and everything, and the left hand issues, imagine how much people would be talking about that deal. So
he struggles to dribble with his left hand. That may be true, but a lot of people in the NBA do, right? Like, look at the guy we just mentioned. Look at Siakam. He doesn't really go left.
He doesn't use his left. Like Jaylen Brown will make moves with his left hand. He'll make a play. He'll do the stare at his left hand thing. I don't know the last time I've seen Siakam drive left. I like I said, I just don't know. Most of the time he dribbles right. He uses his left arm to push off, and he does a little push shot. That's his offense.
I was saying, of course, there's that Killian Hayes, who I think he forgot he has a left hand at times. Dude will set himself up for the easiest layup if he just uses left hand and then brick it because he tries to get fancy and uses right. It's ugly.
All right. I mean, hopefully this is the first trade in maybe a flurry of them. Because I feel like the NBA this year, I think there's gonna be a lot of trades going back and forth, especially with some of the teams that are at the bottom of these standings. You know, looking at out west, you have Golden State hovering around 11. Sorry, Jory. Lakers are down in the play-in spot. I was about to say the Clippers, but the Clippers have actually turned it around. Kind of weird thought that early in the season we kind of laughed at the Clippers when they first brought in Harden and seemed like they couldn't win, and they now have like a 5-game lead on the Lakers. Once again, Jory, sorry, not the Lakers slander, but I saw it the other day because I kind of lost track of what the Clippers were doing, and they're actually playing really good basketball right now.
I think the Lakers will be fine. They just got to get more shooting out there. I heard they're moving LeBron back to point, which is great. But if you're surrounding him with, Reddish and Vanderbilt, that's just really not going to help you at all. So,
yes, get D. Russell off your team. Which obviously, if they're moving LeBron back to point, that probably means Russell's role, impact, whatever you want to call it, has diminished, and he'll probably get packaged in some deal.
I'm sure he's available.
Yeah. Russell's just, I don't know. He's one of the more frustrating guys in the league. Because one night he'll get hot from the field, drop like 40, but then he has way too many nights where he struggles to shoot, and if he's not scoring for you, he's giving you basically nothing else on the court. So I see why you're saying that, Jory. And unfortunately, some other teams end up picking him up and going, we'll figure it out. And then a couple months later, they'll be like, why did we trade for this guy?
Listen, and I think he's already developing CTE. Like, let's be real. Anybody who says Christian Wood is the best defender on the Lakers probably should get checked, like, right away. That was the most insane comment I think I have ever heard in a while. And I seen like 3 Gilbert quotes today, so.
Right, yeah. Good old Gilbert. I wish I had a graphic for him because, he says a lot of crazy stuff. But, so hopefully the trade activity in the NBA picks up, and we'll definitely be here to talk more about it. So far, the Knicks and Raptors get it kicked off. But before we get into our next topic, and Anthony, if you're still here, your question about the NFL awards, you can go ahead and drop it now because we're about to get into the NFL. Jory said, like, Anthony Davis isn't there.
Whoever wants it can have him for $50. I only got 30, Jory. Does that work?
20 and an IOU promise. All right, another word for the network. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Pavel the Cat.
And Evan Rev Reynolds.
And we are Two Guys in Hockey Talk. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk all things hockey. What do we talk about, Evan?
We talk KHL, AHL, ECHL, every HL hockey league you can think about, prospects, juniors, even the professional women's hockey league.
Yeah, we love it. And we have a website, Two Guys in Hockey Talk. So give us a follow. We got articles on all things related to hockey, and we're writing all throughout the season. So make sure you tune in. We're also on X or Twitter. You can find me at hockey_2, and
you can follow me at RevanEv. Or you can also go to twoguysandhockeytalk.com to follow everything.
We love hearing from you guys, so make sure you tune in, comment, like, give us a follow on our Facebook and YouTube page. We love hearing from you guys, and it's a blast talking all things hockey. Right, Evan?
Hey, man, it is. So, as we say every show, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, congratulations, Kyle. Looks like you have Anthony Davis for $20 and an IOU.
All right. I'll take it. Yep, that works. So I asked Anthony to drop his question. So until then, we'll kind of go ahead and get into these overreactions. It's week 17 overreactions. This is the segment every week that I feel like the chat loves. They love throwing out their own. So if you're in here, throw out your overreactions from this past week. Damien's our overreactions king, so I'm sure he might start popping up. But okay. So Anthony asked it. Here we go. So let's start with this one. Why is DeMar Hamlin comeback player of the year, but not Joe Flacco? I'm glad you asked that, Anthony, because that's something that's been thrown around out there. I don't get it. I mean, I get, he had the horrific scene last year and he was on Buffalo's roster, but if he wasn't really playing, how do you give him the award that kind of signifies a player overcoming something, coming back and contributing? I mean, Joe Flacco, it'd be maybe tough to give it to him since he's only played a handful of weeks, but he'd definitely be more deserving than DeMar Hamlin. I would say you could give it to like a Baker Mayfield, who went from, the highs with Cleveland to basically being seen as just a backup, struggling to find a team, and he's kind of found a home in Tampa. You go a few number of ways, but we know if it's DeMar Hamlin, it's for the sentimentality of him and the scene that we all saw, and then the fact that he's like back on an NFL sideline. My whole thing has been you could have like DeMar Hamlin present the award, because at least that way he would get like a moment, like walking out to the stage or something like that, and then handing it off to somebody. But, it is what it is. Brett, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, to answer your question, it's because of what happened last year, and then he made the active. As soon as he made the active roster, the award almost felt like a lock, right? We were saying that before the year even started. DeMar Hamlin, comeback player of the year, which I don't agree with because this dude has played like 6 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
You can name the comeback player of the year award after DeMar Hamlin. You can give him a segment. You can do many things. I don't think he's deserving of the award. And I get it. Listen, I'm glad he's still with us. That is awesome. And it's great that he made a roster and he's still able to play football, even if it's just a couple snaps. But I don't think he's done enough for this award.
Let's see. So Syjan seemingly co-signs Flacco. Look, I wouldn't be mad if they gave it to Flacco because talk about comeback player of the year. Dude was probably sitting on his couch, got a phone call one day. We saw the little image of him flying out to Cleveland, and he's been inserted into that lineup. The team hasn't missed a beat. You could say that he, along with PJ Walker and DTR after the Watson stuff, led Cleveland to a double-digit, win season. And they lost Nick Chubb out of it as well. So I wouldn't be mad if Flacco got it, but,
I think there should really only be 2 winners at this point, or contenders. It should be either Joe Flacco or Baker Mayfield. I don't see anybody else that could really beat those 2 at this point.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, great question, Anthony. That's something that's definitely been floating around, and I think it has gotten a lot of people talking. But let's go ahead and get into these overreactions. Brett, we'll start with you. What's your overreaction for Week 17?
Oh man, I think it's really simple. Dan Campbell's an idiot for going for it on for 3 2-point conversions. Listen, I'm not going to lie. People are blasting him for that last 2-point conversion when in all reality, it was a great play design. And if Jared Goff puts that throw on the money, that's a walk-in touchdown. So this is a situation where I do think that Dan Campbell is too aggressive at times. And I'm thinking that maybe after the first 2-point conversion, he probably should have kicked that second one. But honestly, people are blasting him for that last one, and I think that might have been the best play design of them all. So my overreaction is Dan Campbell's an idiot, which is I don't think he is. He is too aggressive, but I'll give him credit. Those are some great play designs that he had drawn up.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you. It seems like the NFL, it's now the cool thing to go for it on fourth down or go for it 2-point conversions when you don't need to. I always thought the analytics was you don't chase the 2-point conversion early in the game. Now we're seeing teams will score a touchdown in their first drive and look to go for two. It was always like in the fourth quarter, if you were wanting to make it a one possession game, then you go for two and then try to take your chances on an onside kick or something. That's the first part of it. But then the second part is, can we really be mad at a team for being too aggressive? Because I also hate when teams get really conservative. So it's like a weird, I don't know, situation there. But like you said, I didn't have a problem with necessarily the play calls. I thought with the first one when they scored the touchdown, but then they had the penalty with the, declaring and lining up wrong or whatever. They pushed it back. Then that play failed, but they were gifted with an offsides call on Micah Parsons to move it back to where it originally was. I was like, at that point, maybe it's not in the cards for you to just go for two. He decides to do it again. And like I said, the out route wasn't bad. Because if Goff puts it on the guy, he probably stretches at the pylon and he gets in. Goff just threw it too short. So, it was definitely a choice of his. And it kind of shows, Detroit wasn't really going to lose the division or anything off of it. I mean, it does kind of hurt their seeding a little bit. They're probably going to be locked in as well, like the 3 or something like that. But, I don't know. Oh, Anthony has another question. So we'll go to this before I get my overreaction. I think the Ravens would be crazy to play Lamar next week. Yes, but I have a feeling they're probably going to play him to pad MVP stats. I don't know.
They absolutely shouldn't play Lamar next week.
Yeah.
Lamar has an injury history. We would have to give them the same treatment as we gave a Brandon Staley when Mike Williams got hurt when he played him in that meaningless game in the last game of the season. What if Lamar gets hurt? We would be blasting. That would look horrible on the Ravens. So there's no need to play Lamar next week, and we should not see him on the field next week.
Right. Their backup's Huntley. He was a Pro Bowler. Tell me you can't trust him with a game in Pittsburgh? Anthony said the same crew from the Lions vs. Cowboys game will be at the Pittsburgh vs. Ravens game. Well, that means it's probably going to be entertaining one way or the other.
Mason Rudolph legacy game. Let's go.
We should not see Lamar. But I kind of thought that towards the end of the Dolphins game when it was clearly out of reach, they should have pulled Lamar, and they kept him out there. And that was obviously for the MVP. Because it seems like Lamar's destined to win the second MVP. Whatever. So, I don't know. But yeah, shouldn't see him. Would not be surprised if he plays a little bit. My overreaction kind of goes with Joe Flacco. The Browns are upsetting somebody wild card weekend. I don't care if it's the Jags. I don't care if it's the Chiefs. The Browns will beat either one wild card weekend. Because one, defense travels, and that defense is really good. And plus, the two teams I mentioned, the Jags and the Chiefs, are struggling right now. I know the Chiefs have championship pedigree and all that. Come on. It's Joe Flacco here. Joe Flacco is playing like he's trying to win MVP. But yeah, I think the Browns upset somebody. I even have a second part of the overreaction. This was before the game this past week, but I think the Bucks could upset somebody. And of course, the Bucks have to get in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But we'll stick with the Browns. The Browns will upset somebody, whether the Chiefs or the Jags, wild card weekend.
I like it. Listen, I need the Browns to upset somebody. I made the prediction, and I need it to ring true. Joe Flacco knocks the Ravens out of the playoffs. I'm speaking it into existence. It will happen.
If that happens, look. Outside of the Patriots drafting a certain quarterback in the draft next April, that would make me very happy. to see Flacco do that.
Which quarterback? Williams, May, McDaniels.
So before I was all in on Jaden Daniels. I gotta tell you, watching this college football playoffs, I'm kind of in on Michael Penix. I think he's probably going to be a guy who will get drafted after Williams and May. He'll probably be in the top 10 area. So even if the Patriots were like third or fourth and wanted to trade back, because we know Belichick loves to trade back and get other picks involved, that would be a guy I'd like to see. And McCarthy from Michigan kind of showed me something as well. And I think he's a guy you can get maybe the second round. I don't know. I don't know what McCarthy's value is right now. But like if the Patriots wanted to go, like if Marvin Harrison was there, third or fourth, and they wanted to draft him and then get McCarthy later on, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think the
Bears
Bears
agrees with Browns. Okay.
I was thinking the Bears need to get Harrison.
That's what they should do. I don't get all this talk about. I mean, I guess we could say that for an overreaction, unless you want to use that one as your overreaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little Bears drafting strategy. In fact, because I've seen this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bears should trade Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams. Now, whether that's true, personally, I do enjoy Justin Fields. I think he's a very phenomenal talent. However, I do think that the right answer is get him Marvin Harrison. I really do. I think DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, that team would be tough on offense. They'd be set on offense for, the next 4 or 5 years?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I cannot stand all the talk about, because I saw it all this past week when they were playing the Falcons. And Fields looked great, even though it was snowing like crazy. It seemed like every pass he threw, the commentators were like, oh, that might be his last pass in Chicago. This could be it for him. And I'm just like, you watch that performance and you actually feel like he's the biggest issue with that team. And if you just bring in Caleb Williams, that fixes everything. I get it. He's 10-27. That's his record. Usually, quarterback with a record like that, you'd be thinking, how's this guy not a backup yet? But you also have to look at the circumstances that Justin Fields has had to deal with. He's dealt with terrible offensive line. He's dealt with non-existent wide receivers. Remember, before DJ Moore, he was going to be asked to throw to Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. Like, who's supposed to have success with that? And luckily, Cole Kmet's kind of come on that the tight end position looks a lot better now. But I feel like you just keep going with Fields. And you have, 2 years to really decide on him? Why trade him now?
Yeah, no. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Like, I think people got to understand record is not a quarterback stat. There's so much that goes into record. Like, the quarterback obviously plays a part in that. But it's like, who do you – like, Kyle, let me ask. Who's a better talent to you, Justin Fields or Kenny Pickett?
I mean, it's with Fields, yeah, Fields.
Oh, Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett's 14-10 in his career. Justin Fields 10-27.
Right.
Like, to me, things like that show like winning. It's more about the circumstances surrounding you. You can have a big part in that, but all it takes is one bad hop, one bad roll, one tip pass that wasn't your fault, one drop pass. Like, if you're Kadarius Stoney, changing the complexion of the entire game. So I think we just got to stop trying to use a record as an indicator of how good a quarterback is.
Yes, absolutely. Anthony, New England doesn't have tall wide receivers. Michael Penix wide receivers are all 6'2", I think. If any of them are ready to graduate, draft one of them as well. Give them at least one target to throw it to.
I also think that I hope that New England's going to redo their wide receivers this year. So
there's a couple I'm fine with, like Demario Douglas. You can keep him. Kendrick Bourne, I think he's a free agent. Wouldn't mind him coming back. Outside of that, I still think Tyquan Thornton is usable. I just don't know what's missing with him. And then Devontae Parker, I actually like the signing. It's just that he really hasn't had a quarterback who could really get the ball to him. So, I hope that there's a quarterback and at least a wide receiver that gets drafted by New England. But my next overreaction, looking at Denver and what's going on with Russell Wilson, what is up with Denver and Sean Payton and whatever his ego and all this stuff behind the scenes, and now it's like they're talking about Russell Wilson. His recollection of things might be false. Look, I don't care either way. It's just that to sit there and tell a guy that unless he fixes his contract, he might get benched. I think that's a terrible precedent to kind of set because one, Denver, you're the one that signed him to that extension. So Russ would have been an idiot not to sign it. So you can't blame him for that. But the fact that you're trying to save face now and put this whole season and the mess that it's become on Russell Wilson, I don't think that's fair. Because Sean Payton was supposed to fix it. He fixed some aspects of it, but you can't say that he's been the total savior for that team. They do have an issue that Jerry Jeudy has not been productive, even though apparently a lot of that's supposed to be on Russell Wilson not finding him. But I saw that Patriots play them. Jerry Jeudy did not look like a guy who was open all the time. So I guess miss me with that. It almost comes across like they're just trying to, I don't know, kill Russell Wilson's value, even though they would want to move him. Makes no sense. But to wait for the last two games to just bench him like that, I think is ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the overreaction is Denver's just one big mess, and they're trying to dump it all on Russell Wilson, and I don't agree with that.
Well, and let's be real with Jerry Jeudy. Steve Smith, there we go, said it best. He's a jag, just another guy. Russ stopped throwing to him because he's not getting open. It's as simple as that. Yeah. And I'm sure some Broncos fan could probably pull up like nitpick clips like, oh, he was wide open here. Sure, blown coverage, and I'm sure he occasionally does get himself open, but more often than not, he's not. And now this mess that Denver's creating, it not only affects Russell Wilson, it affects their standing around the league. Because now if you're a free agent, Denver's like, yeah, we'll give you this contract. You look at the Russ situation like, well, okay, but now you're going to have to pay me more because I don't trust you that you're going to randomly decide to cut me. Like, I feel like this opens the door for them to now have to overpay for every free agent that comes in.
Yeah. And like the part that was in question was he has like some injury guarantee, and I think that's what Denver was approaching him to kind of take away. Because I think with the injury thing, if he were to get hurt, he would get $37 million or something. But the crazy thing is, if Denver just ups and releases him, I think he counts for like $86 million in dead cap. Which, I mean, good luck working around that. Now, Syjan said Russ to Atlanta. Peyton didn't like Russ even when he was a Seahawk. And that's fine. But then why not try to move him in the offseason before, or if you really didn't like him, have him be your backup and, take the criticism for whatever it is. Like, they went through the terrible beginning part of the year. Then it seemed like Russ turned it around. And then, unfortunately, the last couple of weeks, he went back to former Russ. And they fell out of I think they're still in the playoff hunt, but it takes a lot for them to get in. But, yeah, like if Peyton wasn't a fan, I'm sure they could have made a trade that maybe they would eat a bunch of dead money, but get the guy you want. Now, Russ to Atlanta. Interesting.
I'll say Russ goes to Atlanta, they're sleepwalking into the playoffs next year. Like, listen, it seemed like they always knew about that injury guarantee, and Sean Payton was always seemingly calling a very vanilla game to almost avoid having Russ get hurt. Russ is not at his best when he's just a vanilla drop back quarterback. He's at his best on plays that break down when he has to create. Plays that aren't on time, like they fall apart. That's where Russ actually tends to thrive. That's those highlight plays we saw in Seattle. So I think you get Russ to a situation like Atlanta. You get rid of Arthur Smith, get a real coach in there that is willing to work with Russ, and you build the offense around Russ. That's going to be phenomenal because these Atlanta receivers, they're getting open. There's just nobody to throw them the ball.
Seidon said Payton should have waited to take the job with the Chargers. I always thought that. Well, I thought the Chargers missed an opportunity with the playoff loss, not firing Staley to go get Payton. But once they kept Staley, I guess Payton just jumped at a job that was available in Denver. I mean, maybe he becomes a success in Denver. But yeah, it obviously seems like the Chargers job would have been the perfect fit for him. I'm sure Herbert's a quarterback that he likes. I don't know. Too many people get too antsy in the NFL. Jory says, dang near a perfect storm waiting to happen. And what's going on, Key? I mean, Russ will be somewhere. A lot of teams need a quarterback. He's bound to land because, Atlanta's going to be in the market. You figure Pittsburgh will be because they can't go into next year with Pickett being solely the guy. We just talked about New England will need one. I don't know. Possibly Minnesota because Kirk Cousins, I believe, is a free agent. They will need one. So Russ will end up somewhere. But, yeah, definitely not in Denver. He's obviously not coming back to Denver. But, Brett, you got another overreaction?
Whew. Oh, I'm trying to think of one, man. I ain't gonna lie. I only had those two.
Okay, that's fine. I can come up with one. Okay. Kind of an overreaction, but kind of not. Yes, the Ravens are the number one seed in the AFC. Like you said, Brett, you're hoping the Browns can knock them off, which, trust me, I would love to see it. I may have said this before. I don't know. I don't keep track of my overreactions. But if they do not make the AFC title game this season, I don't hear nothing from Ravens fans. I don't care what happens in any regular season going forward. I don't want to hear nothing about, this team is this team is that. If they pull this again, where they're the number one seed because they did this already, and then they lost, not wildcard week. I think it might have been they lost their first game. It was either divisional round or whatever. If they pull that off again, blow it up. Fire Harbaugh, just blow it all up. Because the way the AFC is lined up, with all of the unpredictability with the rest of the teams, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs, the Jags, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. You got wildcard teams that are missing their starting quarterback. You find a way to lose to one of these teams. One, I'll probably be on here laughing because I'm just that kind of guy. But two, no longer want to hear Ravens hype from ESPN, NFL, none of that. That's all I gotta say.
They'd be right back at it next year.
Well, they need not be. And if they try it, I'm going to be the first one in line to knock them off their pedestal. I will become the biggest Ravens troll hater ever if they don't make the AFC title game.
Yeah, they can't seem to get past the divisional round. They got knocked out by Tennessee. And, yeah, I agree. This season, it's almost like the perfect storm for them to make it. Every other team that we projected who is going to be a powerhouse is either hurt or has their own set of issues.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't make it this year, I think it's time to question how far can this iteration of the Ravens really go.
Simon said, right now I'd take either Harbaugh as the Seahawks head coach. So you out on Pete Carroll? I mean, he's been there a while, so I wouldn't be mad at that. We know Jim Harbaugh's gonna get a lot of buzz around the NFL. It's just whether, well, I don't know if the whole stuff in Michigan might force him back to the NFL, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. Him and Lincoln Riley. I feel like you're going to hear those two names a lot with some of these head coaching openings. And Sidon said Russ hinted at Tomlin about becoming a Steeler, if not a full conversation.
Yeah, no, I would like that. Like at the end of the day, if Kyle said it earlier, you can't go into next season with Pickett as your quarterback. That's just tying you to the treadmill of mediocrity.
Yes.
When Jordan Love has better stats in 6 weeks than Kenny Pickett has in 2 years, that's pretty telling.
And Sidon said, yes, the game has passed them by, and you guys know this. I mean, I like Pete Carroll. I can see where you're coming from. Yeah. Like I said, he's been there a while. You know, it's kind of the same stuff that we're seeing. It almost seems like as guys are in a spot too long, I feel like fans get a little bit wishful in terms of bringing somebody new in, because we're seeing like New England, Belichick, talking about him moving on. It seems like now every year it's Tomlin watch party to see if Pittsburgh actually moves on from him. And now you throw in Pete Carroll. Those are three guys who have been in the same spot for a long, long time. So it'll be up to the organizations to see if they just want a different voice in that locker room or not. But I like Pete Carroll, even though he was like Mr. 8-8 when he was with New England for those 3 years. All right. Those are our overreactions. I mean, if you guys have any more of them, you can definitely throw those in there. But before we move on to our picks and everything like that, and looking at the playoff picture as well, another word from the network.
Hey, this is Chris from Coffee and Sports, the morning show over on Sports Empire Network.
And this is Mo. Catch us on Northeast Streaming Sports Production, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m.
We hope to see you there.
All right, Coffee and Sports. You start your day off with those guys, and they'll get you ready to go. So here's how we did last week. Leave it up to Jake. I finally go over 500 one of these weeks. I go 3-2, and Jake upstages us all by going 4-0-1.
Wow.
And the one that he got the tie on was the Raiders game, because the Raiders were +3. They lost by 3. So it was a push. Yeah, Jake had an incredible week. I had them. Yeah, because he had the Browns, Lions, Bears, and the Packers. Got them all. And like I said, the Raiders were +3 and lost by 3.
I'll say that last week was like Jake's flu game. He went full MJ right there. That is amazing.
Yes, that really is. Yeah, Brett and I both went 3-2. We both had the Browns and the Lions. Your Packers won for you, and my Patriots won for me. So we got the Browns, Lions, and then our respective teams. I missed it with the Bucks. Thanks a lot, Baker, and the Vikings. And then you missed out with the Titans and the Dolphins. I mean, I don't think a lot of people saw the Dolphins game going the way that it did, to be honest. So yeah, Jake is now 39, 34-2. I'm 30, 44-1. Brett's 19, 13-1. So Brett, you're 6 games over. Jake's now 5 over. Me, I'm 14 under, but it's all good. We got week 18. We'll continue this for the playoff games. Who knows? I feel like I'll do well with the playoff games. Whether or not it's good enough, we'll see. But yes, let's move on to this week's games. So for this week, no Thursday night game, because Thursday night is now over. You don't have to worry about that anymore. So we'll have a Saturday night and a Sunday night. That's our prime time, because next Monday night, of course, is the national championship game, college football, and we know the NFL doesn't like stepping on the toes of college football, which I respect that. So looking at this matchup, Saturday night, we have the Texans and the Colts. I believe I had the playoff scenarios all pulled up here, so I can let you know with this game. So Houston can clinch the AFC South by beating the Colts and then having Jacksonville lose. Or if they win, they clinch a playoff berth. So that's on the line for Houston going into this one. And then the Colts can clinch the AFC South by beating Houston and then Jacksonville losing, or Indy would have to tie the Texans and then Jacksonville lose, and then Indy would clinch a playoff berth beating the Texans. So that's what's on the line in this matchup. Colts are a 1.5 home underdog. How do you see this one going, Brett?
I think it's going to be the Houston Texans, and I think they cover. I think this is going to be a fun one, but CJ Stroud is special, man, and he's been calm, he's been poised, and he's elevating everybody around him in a way that you don't see very many quarterbacks do. So I think that continues. I think Indy had a great season, but I think the Texans take this one, and I think they win by about 10.
Okay. I agree. I'm taking the Texans and I guess -1.5 here. I don't root for the Colts. I don't want them to have playoff success. I don't even want them to make it in. Can't stand Jim Irsay. Gardner Minshew, like him. Unfortunately, you're on the Colts, so I'm rooting against you. But yeah, like I said, CJ Stroud has exceeded expectations in his rookie season. The Texans have exceeded expectations in terms of the landscape of the NFL. DeMeco Ryans exceeded expectations as a first-time head coach. So I feel like with all that working in their favor, they deserve to win this and claim a playoff spot. So I'm with you there. Give me the Texans as well. All right, so Sunday night, very interesting matchup here. We have the Bills traveling to the Dolphins. I thought it was a little bit weird. Dolphins are a 3-point home underdog as well. So Vegas is loving Buffalo. Once again, I believe there are some scenarios with this game. I'll give these to you as well. So Buffalo. If Buffalo beats the Dolphins, they would win the AFC East. I mean, who thought that was possible about 5 weeks ago? And then Buffalo will just clinch a playoff spot if they tie, if the Steelers lose, Jacksonville lose, or if Houston and Indy end in a tie. So basically, Buffalo's in. Now it's just about them winning the division. So the Dolphins, obviously, they win the division, win, and they get it. So how do you see this one going?
Oh, this one's a little tougher to me. I feel like Dolphins are going to be out for blood because they just got embarrassed last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I will take a Buffalo victory, but I do think that I really want to say this is going to be a push because I really feel like this is going to be a 3-point game. But if I have to pick one and take a shot in the dark, I will say that Buffalo wins, but Miami covers the spread.
Okay. So you got Dolphins +3. All right. I mean, that's a good point you brought up. The Dolphins just are coming off an embarrassing loss to the Ravens. Now, the fact that they are playing Buffalo and Buffalo has a chance at winning the division, that should give them the extra motivation to win this, especially in Miami. But the Bills are just, look, I thought before the season the Bills aren't going to make the playoffs. I know I can admit when I'm wrong. I've been doing it all week, every week with my picks. But I kind of think the Bills get it done here. And they end up winning the division, which is crazy to me. But I think the Dolphins are starting to get a little, I don't know, a little tight because a few weeks ago, like I said, it seemed like they were a lock for the division. It seemed like they were a lock for the number 1 seed. And now in the subsequent weeks, they've lost the number 1 seed. And I think now they lose the division. So I'll take the Bills -3 here. And Syjan has Bills by 4. He also had Texans by 8. That would be wild if they end up messing this up. All right, so here we are. Rest of Week 18. Some interesting matchups on here. Steelers, who we talked about earlier, and the Ravens. I had to do a double take on that one. The Ravens are plus 3.5. I guess Vegas is assuming Lamar's not going to play. But even then, Huntley's a Pro Bowler. Why wouldn't you still make them a favorite? They're in Baltimore. But Ravens 3.5-point home underdog. We have Falcons at the Saints. Saints 3-point favorites there. The Browns at the Bengals. Bengals are a 6-point favorite, even though the Bengals unfortunately have been knocked out because they were a team that a couple weeks ago I said would make a wild card. We have the Jags at the Titans. Titans are a 5.5-point underdog there. Bucks, Panthers. Panthers are a 5.5-point underdog. Jets, Patriots. Patriots are a 2.5-point home favorite. The Zappy effect, as I call it. Got Vikings at the Lions. Lions are a 3-point favorite at home. The Packers are a 3-point favorite hosting the Bears. The Cowboys are a 13.5-point favorite on the road at Washington. Seahawks, 2.5-point favorite at Arizona. The Niners are a 3-point favorite at home against the Rams. Eagles, 5.5-point favorite against the Giants. The Eagles are slipping and sliding right now. So I guess they're supposed to bounce back, but kind of thought that last week. Then you have the Broncos, 2.5-point favorite against the Raiders, which I think there's some weird scenario with those two teams I'll get into here. And then we have the the Chargers are a 3-point favorite over the Chiefs at home. Interesting there. So, Brett, what's your lock and upset?
I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. My lock is going to be the Packers beating the Bears.
Okay, double down on the Packers.
Gonna support them even if they decide to ruin my pick'em record. You know what? I'll risk it all for the Packers.
All right.
My upset of the week. Let's see what would be a fun upset for this week. I'm gonna take you know what? I'll take the cowards way out. I'll take the obvious one. Give me the Ravens at the Steelers.
Okay.
I think the Ravens pretty easily cover that 3.5-point spread.
I like it. Should we do an extra pick just to get to our normal 5 picks for the week?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll pick one more.
All right, go ahead.
All right. The third one is I will take. I'm trying to think, right? Like who's going to be resting all their starters? This is why I'm like taking a second to try to figure this out. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that's why the Chargers are a 3-point favorite.
That's an interesting line. Not sure.
I'm gonna go with Browns. I think the Browns beat the Bengals.
All right. So I just suggested Browns upset Bengals. So you're gonna take the Browns plus 6. Okay. Which I guess for that one, I'm assuming the Browns can't really move up or down. I'm assuming that's why it's a 6-point spread. And for the Bengals, they're out of it, but that's an interesting line as well. All right, so for me, like you, I gotta keep it going with the Patriots here. Even though the Jets defense will be tough, but it's also week 18. Some of those guys are probably checked out. Give me Zappy putting up some more numbers. So I'll take the Patriots minus 2.5. In terms of an upset, I will go with it would be kind of the Falcons thing to beat the Saints, but I'm not going to go there. I will go. I got a weird feeling about Rams Niners and Rams covering the plus 3. I'll take that one. I'll take Rams plus 3. And then my bonus one, I'll go. What do I see obviously happening? So I'm gonna go back to my guy Baker. I'll take the Bucks minus 5.5 in Carolina. All right, so to recap our picks, and Jake, like last week, he'll send his in like midweek, so I will have his picks. But Sijin said I almost said Rams versus Niners game. See, on the same wavelength there, Sijin. But Brett's taking the Texans minus the 1.5, Dolphins +3, Packers -3, Ravens +3.5, Browns +6. I have the Texans as well -1.5, Bills -3, Pats -2.5, Rams +3, and the Bucks -5.5. All right. So before we get into our last topic, which we'll look at the playoff picture and kind of analyze that, have one last word from the network.
Hey y'all, I'm Key.
And I'm Jory, and tune in to Hoop Dreams and Touchdown Queens every Saturday at 5 p.m. over on Sports Empire Network.
And don't forget, also watch us on Roku TV at Northeast Streaming Productions. So tune in.
All right. So that's Hoop Dreams and TD Queens, our show on Saturday. So here's the current playoff picture. You have the Ravens. So we'll start with the AFC. You got the Ravens as the 1 seed. Currently, the 2-7 matchup would be Miami versus Indy. But like we said, the Houston-Indy game is basically winner gets in. So that could easily be the Texans. We have the Chiefs, Bills. I said a couple of weeks ago, if that happens, Chiefs fans, look out. And then Jacksonville, Cleveland, which I said earlier in this episode, look out in terms of Cleveland upsetting somebody. NFC, we have the Niners as the 1 seed right now. 2 seeds, the Cowboys with Brett's Packers as the 7 seed. Got the Lions as the 3 seed, Rams the 6 seed, and then Bucks 4 seed, Eagles 5 seed. So look at this playoff picture. I think there's some other scenarios I didn't. Let's see here.
I know the Packers are pretty much a win in. If they win, they're in. But if they lose and the Seahawks win, the Seahawks are in.
Yes. Well, okay, so the Steelers in the AFC, they seemingly are the only team that could crash the party outside of Houston. So for them to get in, they would have to win, and then Buffalo would have to lose. Or they win, Jacksonville loses, or they win, and then Houston and Indy end in a tie. Then it gets really crazy. If they tie, Jacksonville has to lose. Houston and Indy doesn't end in a tie. Love that one. Or Jacksonville lost, Denver win, Houston, Indy doesn't end in a tie. Then Pittsburgh would get in. A lot of craziness there. The NFC side, the Falcons, they can only get in with the division, so they'd have to win. The Bucks would lose. The Cowboys win the NFC East with a win. I'll just give the most simple one. They win the NFC East. Or if Philly loses, then Dallas gets it. And like you said, with Green Bay win, they get a playoff berth. Then there's a lot of crazy scenarios after that. They can get in with the Minnesota loss, Seattle loss, Tampa Bay loss, or mini Minnesota loss, Seattle loss, Saints loss. Vikings need to win, Green Bay to lose, Seattle to lose, and then Tampa or New Orleans to lose. A lot of these other ones are just simple. Win and get in. Tampa Bay winning, they win the division. Seahawks win, and Green Bay loses, they clinch a playoff berth. So yeah, looking at the current standings, is this what we're going to get come wild card weekend?
Yeah, I think it stays the same. Honestly, I don't see any changes. And man, if it stays like this, I can see a lot of upsets happening wild card weekend. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, I mean we'll probably save that one for by next week. The playoffs will be set, and then we'll go through the matchups and kind of pick who's on upset alert. Because I agree with you. I think the unpredictability of this regular season will carry over into the playoffs, and some higher seeds will get knocked off by some wildcard teams, especially if it stays like this. I already mentioned, I think Kansas City would, the last team they want to see coming into Kansas City would be Buffalo. Now, luckily for them, if Buffalo were to beat Miami, I guess that would flip to Miami going to Kansas City. And I don't know. That would be interesting, though. Tyreek Hill back in Kansas City. Would love to see it. Cleveland, Jacksonville. Jacksonville does not want to see Cleveland. So, yeah. In the NFC side, I don't know. The Eagles, the way that they're playing, could Baker and the Bucks knock them off? Your scenario with the Rams and Stafford going to Detroit, that'd be interesting. And then I guess Green Bay, Dallas. Well, that kind of goes back to the 90s. That was a matchup that was a big deal in the 90s. So, yeah.
Say, Cowboys can never seem to figure out Rodgers. I really hope. I want to see if they can figure out Jordan Love, who's been hot as of late.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we know that the Ravens are the 1 seed. Do the Niners finish as the 1 seed in the AFC?
I think so. They just need to win one more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they clinch it this week.
Okay. So if that happens, looking at the 49ers are clinched. What's up, Cottrell? I thought the 49ers still had to win to clinch the number 1 seed.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Let me see. I should have looked at that one. 49ers. Oh, they did clinch the first one. Yeah, they got a tiebreaker over the Cowboys, Eagles, and the Lions. Yes. Thanks for the correction, Cottrell. That's absolutely right. So we know the number 1 seeds are the Niners and the Ravens. Who has the tougher road? Or who would have the tougher road making it to the Super Bowl? The Niners or the Ravens?
I really think that I want to say that it's Baltimore, and it's not necessarily based on the opponents, right? Mm-hmm. To me, it's all about who I trust more, and I've seen the 49ers get it done this time of year. I've seen them make the Super Bowl. I've seen them get to multiple, NFC championship games. I haven't seen that out of Baltimore. So I'm going to go with Baltimore has it tougher, but a lot of that is also due to I just don't know if they can get it done because they haven't shown me they can yet.
I agree with that. I only asked just to get a little Ravens hate in there at the end. Cottrell agrees Ravens have the tougher road. 49ers most likely only have to beat one good team.
You know what I think is pretty crazy, though? And this is probably me. I just got to toot my own quarterback's horn real quick.
Yeah.
Jordan Love could end this year very well as the NFL passing touchdown leader, and that would blow away absolutely. He's already demolished my expectations, but, man, if he did that, I'd be the happiest man alive. He's at 30. The leader right now is Dak at 32 and Brock Purdy at 31, so I think that's a great story. I really want to see him get that, so that's something to look forward in the Green Bay game outside of playoff implications. Just a little interesting tidbit.
Yeah, I remember looking at the quarterback kind of stats and all that kind of stuff. Some of the names at the top would surprise you. Like you said, Purdy being up there and passing touchdowns, and Jordan Love. That's interesting. Cottrell said Jordan Love sending Mike McCarthy to a job hunt. Look, if that would have happened, you would think Jerry Jones would definitely move on from Mike McCarthy. All right, go ahead.
I'll say it's realistic, but I can't overlook the Bears first. But if they get in, watch out, they're peaking at the right time.
I love that. I love the fact that Love kept tradition by still owning the Bears. Yeah. So for me, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say he's already the greatest QB in Bears history.
For me, look, I've been somebody who, once again, has been labeled an Aaron Rodgers hater. I think it would be so fitting that the first year they rid themselves of Aaron Rodgers, they make the playoffs after Rodgers couldn't get it done last season. So I'm rooting for Jordan Love to make it happen. I am. So as you guys can tell, I got a lot of people I hate. So I need the Texans to win. I agree with you, Control. I think Brett agrees. We would love to see C.J. Stroud make the playoffs. That's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the Texans to get in, which all they have to do, they beat Indy Saturday night. They're getting in.
Yeah, I was gonna say the kid's special, and that's what I want to see in the playoffs. I want to see special talent. So I absolutely want. I'd rather see C.J. Stroud in there than Gardner Minshew. No disrespect to Uncle Rico, but give me C.J. I'll take C.J. at this point.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess before we get out of here, is Lamar winning the MVP?
Yes.
Okay.
5 touchdowns against the Dolphins. That sealed it. They don't even.
I reluctantly agree. Yeah, I'd rather see CMC get it, but it's obviously going to go to Lamar.
Yeah, they don't even need to play him next week. He's already got it at this point. He should just prepare his speech at this point.
That's going to be rough to see. All right, I guess. Simon said yes on Lamar.
Yeah. Well, you're not excited for them to ready to bring up at every turn 2-time
No, I don't need it. I already couldn't stand the Dolphins game, and like every pass, it was Aikman and Buck like, oh, that's the MVP right there. And I was like, okay, we get it, huh? Cottrell says he is. He shouldn't. They should vacate it this year. No one has really earned it. I mean, yeah, I could see that. That's why I thought it'd be a perfect year if the voters had any guts, give it to a non-quarterback. But they're just going to rest on their tradition and give it to Lamar.
Jordan
and Tyreek Hill should have stolen it this year. Injuries suck. Yeah.
Jordan Love for MVP, baby. Vote it. No, okay.
I mean, looking at Lamar's stats, they don't blow you. They don't blow you away. That's my problem. It's like he's only going to get it because he's the quarterback of a number 1 seed, and that number 1 seed happened to beat the number 1 seed from the NFC. That's the reason why Lamar's getting it, even though the defense was a big part of why they beat the Niners. But
yeah, at the end of the day, he was a consistent quarterback on a number 1 team. He's a special talent. He had some special plays this year, but overall, yeah, normally if I looked at those numbers, I would be like, that's not the MVP. But no, I'll congratulate him when he wins it, but I don't think that it should be his MVP.
Control. I'm a Lamar fan, so it'll be fun to hear about how much Lamar sucks and can't play quarterback with 2 MVP awards under his belt.
I will defend Lamar on this, though. Nobody should ever say that he's quarterback-ish enough. Or what was the comment, quarterback? Like, there's I
remember that comment.
That just disrespected the crap. This kid's a quarterback. He's an MVP caliber quarterback. When he's playing at the highest level, he is an MVP caliber player. So I think it's disrespectful as all get out to say that he's quarterback-ish. I didn't hear anybody saying Michael Vick was a quarterback-ish player or Cam Newton is a quarterback-ish player. So I got to admit, sometimes I think the Lamar slander went too far, and that was one of them. He's proven that he's a quarterback in this league, and he's proven that he can play at an MVP level. So if anybody still thinks that Lamar Jackson's quarterback-ish or he's not a quarterback, man, just change sports. Go watch badminton or something.
Right. I mean, look, like I said, I've been known as a Lamar critiquer. I won't even say hater, because I can acknowledge that Lamar is a special talent. It's just he's gonna have to prove it in the postseason. That's the one thing that you can say against him. He hasn't won enough in the postseason. But yes, the 2 MVP awards, if he does get the second one, I mean, you can't fault him for that. The first one he got because he had a really great year, and this season it's going to be because he survived the injury bug that hit everybody else. Oddly enough, he's never been healthy. In the 1 year when everybody else got hurt, he was healthy. So you got to give it to him. And yeah, that killed me to say, but I got to admit it. He's the MVP.
I'll give you credit because when you criticize even like Lamar as a Lamar hater, like all your critiques are fair. You're at least give him his credit as much as you critique him. So I'm okay with critiquing any player as long as it's valid.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So yeah, that's kind of what we have for you. That's it. It's week 18, so get ready for it. I mean, I guess quickly here. I know Cottrell's in here. He's a college fan. Did you watch the playoff games? College football? Oh, Brett, I was asking you.
So I was actually going to ask you since you watched it. What did you think of that last play by Bama? Because that looked terrible.
Yes, I thought maybe he fumbled the snap a little bit and then panicked. That's what I thought. Like I trust they were. Yes, both games were great. I actually did a video on my channel about it. Where wouldn't it be great if we had more playoff games to have better bowls to watch? Because there's like 42 bowl games, and I only watch the playoff games. That's kind of a problem. But
well, you're telling me you don't want to watch like the Cinnamon Jacks Bowl between Boise State and New Mexico?
Zero interest. Yeah. I thought it was a bad call at first, but it was an RPO that would have been a great. Yes. So Cottrell's kind of on my line of thinking. That's what it seemed like it was going to be. But then once he bobbled the snap, he was like, "Oh crap! I just need to take it." And then it looks like a terrible call, but it's just an unfortunate situation.
It also didn't help that that left guard lost in like 2 nanoseconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like he took 1 step forward, and that guard had already lost. That D tackle was already in the backfield. So, the RPO great call, but I know it's going to get criticized just because the execution was just all over the place.
Yes, absolutely. And Cottrell, be ready because I will be in next year's playoffs. Will be sweet. Yes, absolutely. I will be in the wire to wire chat because I need to know about these quarterbacks. As a Patriots fan, I just need to know because I like Penix. I need to know what you guys think about him. But yeah, both games were great. So who do you have winning it, Michigan or Washington? I'm sure Cottrell will answer. But Brett, if you have Michigan or Washington, who do you think?
I'll take a stab at it. I'm going to predict that Michigan comes out on top.
Okay. I kind of went with that when I did the video. I went back and forth because I think it's going to be interesting seeing a Washington team that likes to spread it out. Michigan likes to run kind of pro style, smash mouth. I think it's going to be a fun matchup. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be here next week to break that down as well. Maybe even talk about next year's playoff with the 12 teams. I've been waiting for that for about 6 years now. So
yeah, 4 teams never made sense when just on the fact you have 4 teams and 5 conferences, that just never made sense at all.
It was so dumb. Well, here we go. Control answered here. Penix is too light, not just because he's a lefty either. Super accurate. Arm strength is questionable at times. You need to pair him with the right coach. I don't know how I should feel about that now as a Patriots fan. Oh, I still like him. But yeah, like I said, I'll be in the wire chat asking about these quarterbacks. I need to get one of them for my Patriots. Would you prefer Penix or McCarthy? That's all I'll leave it as. But yeah, so that's all we got for the big 3. Once again, Jake couldn't be here. He's a little under the weather. He should be back next week, hopefully. If you need to watch a replay of this episode, check us out on Northeast Streaming Sports Productions, Roku TV, tomorrow morning. I believe still 11. The time might have changed. I'll double check that. Hold on. I think JJ can be a superstar in the NFL. Has all the talent, just needs to get handcuffs off of. Control, you're speaking my language. I'm loving hearing that. Because he's another guy I'm like, I could see the Patriots going after him. But yes, so for myself, Brett, unless you have anything you want to say before we get out of here? I mean, let them know what they can expect coming up on the network.
Yeah, no, catch me and Mo on And One immediately following this. We got our underrated player of the week, of course. We even have our first ever suggestion from a fan who wanted us to talk about. So that'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So make sure to check out And One after this.
All right. And then the next time you'll see me, sideline to sideline on Thursday, where we will be looking at the final week of the regular season and obviously probably talking about some the NFL playoffs. Oh, Control's shouting out your shirt.
Wire tomorrow.
There you go. All right. So, guys, remember, we are on every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Make sure you come back here next week. Get in the chat like Control's done, like Jory and Anthony and some others did a little earlier. We definitely appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Once again, first show of the new year, 2024 is going to be big for the big three. I already know it, as well as the network. So happy new year to all of you. We'll see you here next week. Enjoy the rest of your night. Good night.